Welcome back.
Hello. Hey, best part about my day is the gift that you gave me when I walked in the store, which is your bobblehead. I'm bringing him everywhere I go from now on.
You were on this incredibly arduous path through America right now, and I just want you to know that
I need a token of you with me everywhere. Yeah, this is great.
And it's almost life-size.
No, I mean, this is truly the exact replica of your body size right here.
For those who don't know, that is Laura Rutledge over there. We haven't seen much of her, but she's busy, and we're just working folks here while Laura 38,000 feet over America.
Yeah, well, it's great to be with you and with all of you. Can't wait to hear from the phone call. We've got some great guests today, too.
We do have some big headlines, and let's get going. And it seems like every time I'm flipping off the television, you're interviewing a coach, and this is where you were last night in Lexington. Just one of the more incredible games we have seen all year.
It was unreal. Rupp Arena is always loud and crazy and wild, but this was different. This last play, Quade Green, I was over there. Unfortunate for Vanderbilt. I felt for Bryce Drew and his squad a little bit because they did play so hard, but this was a big win for Kentucky. Coach Cal said after the game that he wasn't sure how they won the game, and I think they were glad to kind of walk out of there with a win and do it in front of their home crowd. But it was rocking in there. It's always so much fun. And, Paul, they're still trying to figure things out. There is a lot of talent on this team. It's just a little bit different.
And it was truly remarkable. And Laura, this is what they often say on, like, SportsCenter. After the game, Laura Rutledge caught up with John Calipari.
Who's that? Coach, you have Shai Gilgeous-Alexander make 2 free throws at the end of regulation to send it into overtime. What was that moment like?
Happy for him, and I looked at him, and he looked at me, and, he was saying I was going to make it. But we just didn't have the fight that we had the other day. And I just don't get it. But they figured out in the end. And basically, I went with 5 guys. Whoever wants a fight is going to play. The rest of you are not playing. And, the good kids, and we're just learning. We're just so young.
How do you get them to sustain some of that focus that you're looking for?
I'm hoping before the year's out that we can land this plane and there's some runway left. But right now, we just have no consistency out of guys, each individual. It's just hard. But I'm happy we won. I don't know how we won this game. This is one that, I feel for Vandy because they did everything they were supposed to win the game.
Of course, when you're not feeling well, it goes into overtime. We hope you feel better, Coach.
I'm feeling better.
Laura, for those who don't, I think most people know as well, we are kind of nuts when it comes to illness.
We are.
I ask you this because, we love seeing you, but I'm a little concerned because you were right next to the guy who has some malady. I don't know. What does he have, the flu? Or?
We're not exactly sure what he was not feeling well. He was under the weather. And you have put up, it's almost like one of those electric fences for dogs. You put that up between the two of us. And this collar I have around my neck will shock me if I get anywhere close to you, but I feel fine.
I'm in a bubble. There's an invisible bubble around me right now.
Yeah, that's why, no one can get close to you in many ways.
Did you feel his illness on you?
Thankfully, no. I don't know what that means exactly.
He's one coach everybody in America wants to get close to except late last night.
Yeah, and I actually really admire him for being out there. Yeah. He did not feel well. He left shoot-around earlier in the day, and that I have never seen that happen. He's only ever missed 1 game in his whole coaching career. It was when he was at UMass, and so he was really trying hard not to miss the game. And late in the game, it seemed like he caught a second wind. It was kind of hard not to, the way that one was coming down the stretch, and then, of course, in overtime. But, he's asking for fight out of his team. They should have said, well, geez Louise, Coach, we're seeing a lot of fight out of you to be out here.
Yeah. So you, not usually a question.
There was a lot of Purell, though. It was funny. The athletic trainer for Kentucky was just putting it on everybody's hands and would give me some squirts every once in a while, too, which I appreciated.
Here, as you know, Mark Kubiak is usually the producer of the show. He's been sick. John was sick prior to that. Mark came in yesterday, and I know this sounds ungrateful, but he went home, and I asked John, I said, before I ask you how Mark's feeling, have we wiped this entire place
Where
down?
did he sit? Yeah. Did you wipe it down?
I had John do it.
I heard that you got the wipes out and were sanitizing.
I started cleaning some chairs that John missed.
Okay. Yeah, no, for everyone out there, Paul, we may have a little bit between the two of us of hypochondriac.
Yeah.
We're a little concerned about getting sick, the two of us.
Anyway we're good.
Jinx.
I'm glad you look healthy.
No, I think I'm okay. I've been loading up on a lot of, but truly, I mean, best wishes to people out there. I'm sure there are people watching and listening who have the flu right now. We're thinking about you because this is a nasty, nasty flu season. It's really scary.
We had a couple of people at the end of the show last night. One or two were in bed.
I hate it for people.
No, it's a tough time of the year.
Get well soon and take care of yourselves and sanitize your hands.
Speaking of sanitizing, let's get to some more headlines here. USC Stadium to be renamed United Airlines Memorial Coliseum. $69 million.
That's
thank you.
A little bit of money.
That's a few bucks.
Paul, what do you think about renaming these iconic stadiums that you sort of know as one name? I think it's a little confusing.
After a while, you just forget. I'm not a big believer that unless I'm required to say that, I don't usually go United Airlines Memorial Coliseum.
What will you call it? Just Memorial Coliseum?
Yeah, I'll just call it.
Well, we won't tell United Airlines that. They'll be mad at you.
So I don't fly United Airlines, so I'm not really. Anyway, this is a headline that we'll be talking about today. Missouri's AD has blasted the South Carolina coach Dawn Staley, alleging fans used racial slurs. This coming at the result of the weekend game between Mizzou and South Carolina. South Carolina takes on UConn tomorrow and Mississippi State Monday. You would think they would have other issues to think about, but we'll talk about that at 4:15 with Dawn Staley. Adam Amin will join us here in a few minutes.
That's a good name for him, ESPN Renaissance man. That's Adam.
So Renaissance, that's a big word. Let me look it up.
I'll provide you with the definition dictionary. We'll use it in the sentence later on.
That's not
actually, you are a Renaissance man.
Thank you.
You really are. Also, Mike Morgan.
Mike Morgan. That's where we are. But anyway, great to have you back.
I think, what do you guys think? Should I do Adventures of Polly Pocket? This bobblehead Paul?
Hey, Paul in your pocket just doesn't sound right.
What could be wrong with that? Anyway, I think I'm going to bring him everywhere with me and document it because, why not?
Paul.
It's like Elf on the Shelf, Flat Stanley.
It's cool.
Polly Pocket. My little buddy.
One day, Laura will have her own bobblehead.
No, I'm just glad to have yours. I had to work really hard to get this.
You did.
People don't even want to know what I did to get this bobblehead.
You don't. But I will tell you, in the After Dark session of the Finebaum
That's
Show.
Coming up
Available
later.
now on Facebook Live. It'll only cost you $29.95 to find out. Let's see what folks are thinking out there.
Let's hear from them.
Let's get right to it. And Jeff starts us off in Nashville, Tennessee. What do you say, Jeff?
How's it going, Paul? How's it going, Laura?
Hey.
I just want to say you did a great job with Calipari last night. I don't know how you didn't get sick or get any kind of illness from him, but another survival win for Kentucky. They just make things happen, I guess, late, but kind of rough arena magic. And I'll just hang up and listen to what you think about Kentucky, how far they can get this year in the NCAA tournament. Thanks.
Thank you very much.
Yeah, I mean, Jeff brings up a good point. They've hung on and won some of these games. I think the interesting thing for Kentucky fans, a lot of people thought after that West Virginia win, okay, maybe they figured it out, and coming back the way that they did on the road at West Virginia was incredible. You saw the leadership. You saw Shai Gilgeous-Alexander step up. You saw Kevin Knox have an incredible night shooting. And then they didn't look very good against Vanderbilt. And some of that was because Vanderbilt played well, but a lot of it was Kentucky not being able to get in any type of offensive rhythm throughout that game. So I just think we're seeing the youngest team ever from Cal, and he continues to say that, but they are a team, Paul, that could get hot down the stretch at some point. I could see, this is as crazy as this is, especially in college basketball this year, I could see Kentucky being out in the first round of the SEC tournament or winning the whole thing. I could see them making a push late into the NCAA tournament, or maybe not. There's just no way to truly tell which Kentucky team you're going to get on any given night.
One thing you can tell is that when you're at a basketball game lately, it's a good one.
I feel like
you were at an amazing game Saturday in Tuscaloosa. You were at this game last week. You saw. I mean, of course, you've been on this Kentucky run on Tuesday night.
I'm trying to get an apartment in Lexington. If you'd like to contribute to the rent or anything,
I would, as a matter of fact, because I don't want. Do you stay at that hotel right by the arena?
We usually do, but we didn't do that last night. For some reason, we were in a different hotel. But it is. I mean, I love Lexington. It's a great place to go.
Incredible,
beautiful. I mean, obviously Keeneland and everything.
I'm not buying a horse farm in Lexington.
Wow, are you into that? Do you ride horses?
No.
Oh. So what would you do with them? Just race them?
Show them.
Show them? Okay.
Is it which one is the big farm there?
Keeneland.
Keeneland.
Yeah.
Keeneland's
there's
a couple
beautiful.
other ones there too.
And the food is great in Lexington as well, which you know how much I care about that.
Yeah.
But.
No, it's a real treasure. Anyway, we are up against a break here. Laura here for a while, then I think she's off to do Jimmy Kimmel tonight or something. I don't know. 855-242-7285. Quick break. More on the Dawn Staley story coming up. We are right back. While you were away on radio, we heard from Jim Sturk, who's the athletic director of Missouri, making some very interesting and serious allegations. Also, a statement by Ray Tanner. We just heard from Dawn Staley. Laura's here, of course. Adam Amin, who will be doing the game tomorrow night with UConn, one of the showcase games of the year outside of the tournament. Adam, and you're certainly walking into a very bizarre environment where this game should have been center stage. Instead, we're talking about things that we're still trying to sort out.
Yeah, I think tomorrow the game will end up being center stage once the game starts, once we get the tip-off. The problem is we're still about 28 hours away from that happening, so there is going to be a lot of build-up to that moment. I understand what the situation looks like to a lot of people. I don't think there's anything confirmed yet. Obviously, we heard from both athletic directors, whether in audio form or during their statement, but let's remind people of this first and foremost. Jim Sturk is not a headline-grabbing AD. Everybody who covers him says that. He's not somebody who's looking for constant attention or anything like that. So if he says something, I do take it seriously. I do appreciate where he's coming from. I appreciate what Ray Tanner said earlier today. We looked into it. We investigated. We didn't find any confirmation of anything happened. It doesn't mean that it didn't happen, but I don't think it's the right way to go about it if you're Jim Sturk to throw an opposing team's coach under the bus. I was not a fan of him saying, well, Dawn Staley has kind of created this atmosphere. I don't think that's a very good thing to accuse another coach of, that type of hostility. There's reports of fans spitting at players. I don't think Dawn Staley runs that type of program. I don't think Missouri runs that type of program. I think there were a lot of emotions that were running a little high, understandably so, because that's not just one game between Missouri and South Carolina.
There was a previous incident.
Right. At the previous game in Columbia, Missouri. And Dawn Staley got ejected in that game, so emotions were running high. This is a very good rivalry in women's basketball in the SEC. These two teams obviously played very emotional games this year. I think it was poorly handled initially. It's nothing that can't be fixed. I don't think it's nothing that can't be gotten over in the next couple of days, even in the next day or so. I give a lot of credit to Robin Pinchton. I thought she handled it very well.
But the problem is the allegation on this radio show is just so inflammatory.
It is.
And you can there's no way that South Carolina can do anything other than just get splattered on, because even though they've conducted an investigation, people see the headline.
And well, that's the problem, though. And doesn't that speak to a higher problem? Not necessarily just about this issue, but the fact that people don't want to look past the headline. They don't want to look past their own program. They don't want to look through any other glasses but their own team's colors. And I mean, I get that, but this is a much more serious allegation than, oh, my team's better than your team, my coach is better than your coach, our fans are better than yours. This is, as you said, Paul, very fairly so, a very serious allegation that should not be taken lightly. And before anybody has all the facts, I don't think that they're in a position to make accusations the way they did. I'm not a fan of what Jim Sturk said, because I don't think you go to another team's coach and throw them under the bus and say, well, it's their fault, they did this. You can't always keep control of what every single fan in your arena is doing in every single game. Now, is it a serious allegation? Yes, it's a very serious allegation. It should be taken seriously. It should be investigated. If it's found out that fan A and fan B did this, yeah, they probably should be banned from games in the future. I appreciate that. But people are letting their emotions get the best of them, in moments where it's not best to let your emotions get the best of you. It's a good time to let cooler heads prevail. And I think with these types of allegations, let's keep them in that circle, all right? If this was an isolated fan, it's an isolated fan, and let's remember that. Let's not throw an entire program or a coach under the bus. I think it was poorly handled initially, but it's nothing that can't settle down, nothing that can't be forgotten amongst these two programs. The allegations themselves are something that should be investigated, and I think they will be, and frankly, at various points already have been.
Adam, you cover a lot of different sports on multiple ESPN platforms and SEC network platforms, and it's interesting because we always encourage passion, and we encourage fans to approach games with that energy that we want to see, and then sometimes it goes far over that edge, and we don't know what happened here. As you mentioned, they're still trying to gather the facts, even though South Carolina has conducted a full investigation. But as this continues to get sorted out, we'll have to keep everyone updated on the information. But what is that fine line, in your opinion, about how fans and players and coaches and ADs and all this should be in a relationship?
Of course, we deal with this, and you and I on games themselves deal with this on a regular basis. Paul, you deal with this, I'm sure, on a daily basis as well. There is a fine line. I don't think any of us can truly draw what that fine line is, but personal attacks to me, obviously that goes over the line. And what Jim said initially did feel like a bit of an attack on Dawn Staley and the program at South Carolina. I don't think that was fair. That felt personal. I'm not saying it was, and I'm not saying that was the intent of Jim Sterk, but it felt that way to me. I think that would be over the line. To hear some of the things that are being alleged right now, yeah, those are 100% over the line. That does not fall into the confines of what healthy competition, of what passionate fan bases, what passionate fans are supposed to
life,
or in general.
Yeah.
I mean, take the game out of this context. Right. I mean, this is not. Would you say what you're saying to a player on the court or on the field to somebody in your own family in a friendly game of pickup? Like, if you're not willing to say that to somebody face to face, how are you willing to say that when they don't really have an idea about what you're thinking in that moment? I don't think that's a fair way to go about it. I don't think that's a proper way to go about it as a fan. It's easy for me to say that. I don't have a vested interest in whatever teams we particularly cover on a weekly basis. It's not. I'm there for the game. I hope the game's great. I hope it's crazy, and whoever wins wins. And then I'm going to go home and go get ready for the next game. That's all it is for us. So I understand I don't come at it from the same vantage point and from the same base that a lot of college sports fans do. But to me, it just seems inappropriate, a lot of these things. And if you're not willing to say these things to somebody's face, why are you willing to say them when you don't think they're looking or listening?
I mean, do we have any evidence in this back and forth that Jim Sterk did what most athletic directors would have done or should do, and that's call the other athletic director first before speaking publicly and making these type of allegations?
I can understand that it was a passionate moment. It was an emotional moment. And by the way, I don't think Jim Sterk is doing anything that any other AD doesn't think about doing.
But he still did it.
No, I agree with you. I'm saying I think it's coming from a place of defending his program, defending his players, defending his coach. I understand that. You're a leader, though, of a large institution.
But there's a protocol.
There is a protocol
for this.
I agree with that. And if you and I are coworkers or colleagues at, say, competitive companies in the same field, if I have an issue with something that your company is doing, I think if you and I have a friendly enough relationship and even a professional enough relationship, I would call you and say, Paul, I don't like what happened here. Can you give me some information about this?
I wonder.
Before I say
haven't
something?
Seen anything that said that he called Ray Tanner, but maybe he did, and that hasn't been out there. But I'm sure from Ray Tanner's perspective and the South Carolina perspective, that could have been helpful.
We're going to listen in on Ray Tanner. There are a lot of people are speaking right now everywhere, including right here. Ray Tanner is speaking in Columbia. We're going to take a break, come back, and hear what he has to say, because he may answer the questions that I just posed to all of you. What you missed, unfortunately, was comments from Ray Tanner, the athletic director at South Carolina, who said he had spoken today with Jim Sterk. They had he did not really characterize the conversation as anything but two people expressing their views, and he did not choose to disclose it. What is so fascinating here is that there is an unwritten, maybe a written protocol within a league that things stay within the league, and that especially goes for athletic directors. I mean, coaches sometimes do, as you both know, you cover games every week, go off and say things they don't really intend to say, and they can try to walk them back. But for an athletic director to make this statement is I'm stating the obvious, is really extraordinary.
I would imagine that the SEC, somebody from the office, whether it's the commission or not, somebody I would imagine would have to have a conversation with both athletic directors. The problem that comes out with this, and let's take the allegations out of this for a moment, because those are serious. Those are serious allegations. They should be investigated. Mm-hmm. Seemingly South Carolina has investigated them. As you heard, no confirmation of those things. So let's take that aside. At the end of the day, this is still a conference that is trying to find its ground in multiple sports. Obviously, it's had a lot of success over the course of especially the last 13 calendar months. But to keep this conference going in the direction that it's currently going in, there has to be a level of respect and a level of appreciation for the other people in your league. The same way, like we were talking about earlier, Paul, if you and I are in similar fields with different companies, there still has to be a level of respect about what the competition is like. I did not appreciate how this came out. I think most people are kind of in agreement of that. But these are serious allegations that need to be taken into consideration. But you don't go outside your house, I think is probably the best way I can say it. It doesn't feel right to throw another team's coach, another team's athletic director under the bus, especially if there is no confirmation of those things. Now, I'm not going to go as far as LaChina Robinson did the other day and say this is slander, essentially, against Dawn Staley. I don't know what the legal ramifications of it are. I don't know what the parameters are, so I'm not going to.
I can tell you during the break.
Okay, we'll have a good conversation about that. But I think what Michelle Vopel wrote is one of our lead writers on ESPNW. I think what she said was probably the most accurate. This is not the right way to go about approaching issues like this when they are as serious as this. The last thing you need is mudslinging, and the last thing you need is an out of order approach to these things, because when it's this serious, when it's allegations like this, there needs to be some kind of protocol, and the people at the top need to be the ones with the cooler heads. Those are the heads that need to prevail.
Yeah, I think too, what we see here is a lot of people trying to, at the end of the day, protect their coaches and student athletes, sure. Which the intention, and the fans too, because if there are things going on of this nature, if it's alleged, obviously you need to look into those things, as we've said. But what I wonder is, how much of this did have a lot to do with what's already been in place with these two teams.
I don't doubt for a second that had something to do with
this. And these two teams could meet up again. And sure. I think that's where things continue to get interesting. The other thing too, Adam, South Carolina has one of their biggest games so far this season tomorrow.
Forgotten about.
And everyone's forgetting that they're playing UConn. And I mean, you're calling the game. But this will, if I know anything about Dawn Staley and her team, you would think that something like this, and obviously you hope that nobody is offended or hurt in the process, but you think something like this would put a fire under them that could end up being beneficial in some ways.
Well, when we get to Columbia later today, I'll be curious to see what the approach was and how Dawn reacted to this. And I do think it's important because Dawn is still one of the most respected head coach. I mean, she's the USA national team head coach. She's replacing Gino Auriemma. She was an assistant for Gino and is taking over that program now for USA basketball. So she is as respected and admired of a coach as there is in college hoops. So I like to think that she would try to keep this as level-headed as possible. Earlier today, she did have a press conference, and you're going to talk to her obviously in a little bit, but she did say that I don't really have any comments about this right now. And as frustrating as that might be for the beat writer of the team, and as frustrating as that might be for somebody like me who wants to flesh out the story and wants to know the details that are salient to my job, of course I want to know that, but I think that's the right way to go about it. Until you're in a position to talk intelligently and completely about the situation, there's no reason to start throwing anything out before it's confirmed, before there's evidence of something, and before you've talked to the appropriate parties at that point. So I think Dawn handled that well, as frustrating as it might be for people to watch it. I think she handled it the right way, and I'll be curious to see and hear what she says with you guys.
I think too there's been a little bit of a period put on it. I'm not saying it's over because we can't predict that, but Missouri said they had no comment, and Ray Tanner said they conducted an investigation where they did not find conclusive evidence that these things happen. So
it might end up just being that. It might end up dying right there. And if that ends up being the case, fine. It won't pop up again until perhaps these two teams face off in the SEC tournament again, or perhaps in the NCAA tournament, whatever it may end up being. But this may be the essential end of what is happening. Because like I said, in about 27 hours or so, I think a lot of this is going to get forgotten because number one's coming into town, and I think Dawn Staley's preference would be to focus on that as well.
And I'm sure she will.
Yeah.
I mean, these are at different levels. Anyway, let's actually, before you go, talk about that game, because it was Mississippi State last year, of course, who finally unseated or knocked off UConn. South Carolina won the championship, though, but this is still a vitally important game for them.
A lot of people are kind of billing this, and I think it's appropriate as the national championship game we didn't have last year, because a lot of people were under the impression that this was going to be last year's championship game had it not been for Morgan William and Mississippi State and the incredible run that they had. But this is a game that a lot of people were looking forward to. It is, I don't want to say teacher versus student because that seems that's a little bit over the top, but it is
pretty accurate.
It is. I mean, head coach, former, an assistant, things like that. Like, there is a great relationship to observe and to watch and to appreciate between two great college basketball coaches. UConn has gotten through a lot of rocky patches with their bench. They've dealt with injuries over the course of the season. Their best player was hurt a few games ago in Katie Lou Samuelson. We know how good South Carolina is. They just got Asia Wilson back a few games ago. She just joined the 2,000-point, 1,000-rebound club at South Carolina. It's a rare company to be in. So these are two of the more dominant teams with some of the more skilled players. I think if you want to go a little bit micro, Azurá Stevens against Asia Wilson might be the matchup to watch. That'll be a post matchup to watch. 6'5" against 6'4". I mean, these are two really skilled players. So this is a lot of this has a tremendous amount of buildup. Take out what just happened this weekend. There's still a significant level of buildup because of the quality of these two programs.
Yeah, this is the kind of thing that back in the day you would hear, not specifically these allegations, but before a Tennessee-UConn game with Pat Summitt, there was always something going on.
Almost a level of gamesmanship in some capacity.
This is not between the two teams playing. That's we want to make sure people understand that. But it's still worth watching tomorrow night.
I think very much so. 7 o'clock Eastern on ESPN Thursday night. Again, it's a dynasty that UConn built. And it's the defending champions. And it's hard to find matchups like that over the course of a season. I'll give credit to Gino Auriemma forever for this because the American Conference is not a very good basketball league overall. South Florida's a decent team, but nobody holds a candle to Connecticut. The SEC, as you guys have witnessed, very competitive league. So South Carolina gets tested. They're going to get Mississippi State soon, too, over the weekend. So they're going to get tested on a relatively frequent basis. UConn goes out of its way every couple of weeks to not only face a good out-of-conference team, to schedule an out-of-conference team, but we're going to go to Austin, and we're going to go play Texas. We're going to go to Columbia and play South Carolina.
It'd be much easier to just steamroll everybody.
It would be. And they could easily be 35-0 or whatever. They've never lost an American Conference game since they've joined the league, so they could easily steamroll and be undefeated and be the number one team with the best players, and rightfully so. But they go out of their way to play Stanford to open the season. They go out of their way to bring in Louisville, a team that will likely be or could be in the top 5 when we see them on the 12th of February. So I appreciate Gino Auriemma's willingness to put together games like this. And we're starting to see it, I think, on the men's side a little bit more. Big 12 SEC Challenge. That's an opportunity to have games like that you're not really going to get. So I really appreciate when we have 2, 3, maybe 5 of these types of games on our schedule over the course of a year to really build up some momentum going towards the women's tournament.
Adam, I know you've been putting off heading to Columbia as long as possible. But
You're going to hit rush hour traffic. You better watch out.
I'll be listening to you guys on the way.
Thank you so much for coming by.
Really appreciate it, as always.
You bet. Great stuff. Adam, Amin. We'll take a short break. Laura, we'll be back. More of your phone calls. And next hour, we'll hear from Dawn Staley. We'll be right back. Welcome back. We are here.
Let's take some calls.
Let's do it. Start with Alfonso. Go right ahead, Alfonso.
Hello.
Hello.
Hello, is this Paul Finebaum show?
I think it is. Let me see if somebody can... hold on a second, Alfonso. Let me see if I can find the host of the show. Go right ahead.
Yeah, I wanted to mention about the championship game with Georgia and Alabama. We have this guy keep coming on now, from Georgia, talking about
Daryl,
talking about the referee. Look, he need to forget about that. That's over with, and try to make up and get his team ready for next year. See, because
he's not ready. He's not ready to let it go. Have you ever, Alfonso, had a relationship maybe in high school or maybe later, and it's just hard to let go? Why are you smiling?
Yeah. But I want to say this. I'm an Alabama man.
Me too.
And all the people can get ready out there because it's gonna be scary to go to Tuscaloosa. As you look at it, they got all those freshmen playing right now, and it's gonna be trouble there.
Alfonso, has it been easy to play there the last 10 years? I mean, you act like you've just discovered something. You cover a lot of games in Tuscaloosa.
That's one of the more difficult atmospheres you would find in college football because of the talent. I mean, but it doesn't really matter about going to Tuscaloosa. The team is good no matter where they have gone for the most part. He's right, though, in the sense that they do have a ton of talent.
They have an occasional issue in Auburn when Auburn is good.
As we saw this year. Hey, Georgia falls in that category, too, though, with the young talent that's coming back, and they do have some holes to fill. But I think that we, for a long time, will be seeing these two teams in Alabama and Georgia at the top of the West and the East. It's going to be hard for anybody else to contend, although the rest of the SEC will continue to get better, especially with these new coaches in the mix.
Jim is in Fayetteville. Go right ahead, Jim. Thanks for the call, and good afternoon.
Hello?
Hello?
Hello. Hi, Paul and Laura. How are you?
Great. How are you?
I'm fine. I tried to call you about 3 weeks ago. You had a gentleman on the program that played football for Bear Bryant back in the late 50s. And then I tried to call you again last week when on the Bear Bryant's 35th anniversary of his death. Hey, Paul?
Yes, sir.
Okay. Are you there?
We are.
We got interrupted there. Okay.
Yeah, no, we're good.
I wanted to talk to you about Coach Bear Bryant. I wanted to mention something to you that I doubt if many of your listeners know about. In 1958, that was Coach Bryant's first year at Alabama. Either his first or second game was against LSU, and it was played in Mobile, Alabama. I was present at the ball game. I had just been discharged from the Army, and I was stationed in Texas, and I followed Coach Bryant when he was at Texas A&M, and I became a fan of Coach Bryant. But anyway, I got out of the Army on September the 20th, 1958, and I returned to Hattiesburg, Mississippi to continue my education at Southern Mississippi. And Alabama was playing LSU the next Saturday, probably about the September the 25th or 26th or 27th. I don't know if that was his first game at Alabama or his second game. But anyway, during the ball game, I was there. During the ball game, I was sitting either in Ladd Memorial Stadium. I was sitting either on the east side or the west side, and I don't remember which side.
Okay, well, that's good.
But the stands collapsed. I don't know if many of your listeners know about this. I wish that gentleman that you had on your show about 3 weeks ago that played for.
But by the way, for the record, this was Bryant's first game.
This was Bryant's first game. I thought it was his first game.
Yeah.
I wasn't sure if it was his first or second. Anyway,
September 27th.
Have you heard this story?
I've never heard that story before.
So, did people get hurt, Jim? What happened? How did the stands collapse?
They stopped the game for at least an hour.
Wow.
Oh my goodness! The
whole bleachers, the temporary bleachers on the north end, collapsed during the ball game.
You know, Jim. I appreciate you telling. I'm going to read it, but what I was struck by, though, can you imagine this, Laura? The first game of the season was September 27th.
So late.
Yeah,
and what is Bear Bryant thinking when in his first game the stands collapse and the game is delayed for an hour? He probably didn't notice the stands, but then when the game's delayed for an hour, he probably noticed that. That's wild. I hope everyone was okay from that. I can't imagine. Have you ever been on anything when it's collapsed? You're too light to make anything collapse.
I've been part of a career that collapsed.
Well, that's true. It's actually in the process. It's like an avalanche coming down the hill right now. But I've broken like tables and stuff by sitting on them and chairs and all those things.
Tables.
Same thing. But I've never
LSU won the game, by the way.
They did.
Can you imagine LSU beating Alabama?
Yeah, and also after all of that, what a dagger in everyone's hearts who had witnessed the game.
Was Les Miles coaching in 50? No.
Oh, yeah, Les was definitely there.
Sheriff is up next. What do you say, Sheriff?
Hey, Paul, Laura, how are y'all?
Hey.
Hey, I got a question and then a comment. my question is, do you think the Minnesota Vikings will throw a Super Bowl parade if the New England Patriots win since they beat the Vikings?
No, I don't think they will.
That's a funny UCF ode.
Yeah. And the next thing is, last week y'all were talking about the shows, who would be who, and Gilligan's Island and all that.
Oh, yeah, that got a lot of attention, Laura.
Yeah, well, somebody did a great job superimposing your face on Gilligan's and mine on Marianne.
So you decided you decided to be Marianne?
Well, I thought I was Marianne, but then you were saying I was more Ginger.
Well, I remember Ginger. You guys agree? More Ginger than Marianne?
Okay, all right. Well, our in-studio audience
we
here.
We have a new in-studio audience.
Do. They're very quiet, but they're here.
Way to go, Joe.
Woo! Well, Sheriff, what were you going to say, though, about that?
Would you rather be...
I'd rather be Ginger, I think. Or maybe a combo of the two. Actually, I'd rather be Marianne.
I think... Forget.
Yeah, a 3-hour tour.
I think you are more... your best attributes match Marianne's.
Oh, well, thank you. Okay, my worst match Ginger.
They do.
Very strategic
but you don't have,
there.
I think if I had to analyze you, which I would not want to do,
it'd be too.
But if it was required as part of a project, you would have very few shortcomings.
Oh my goodness! Is Sheriff still there?
No. He had a. There was a
call.
There was a robbery.
Barney Fife called him up and said, "Let's go."
The liquor store was being robbed in Mayberry. We'll take a short break. Laura remains with us, at least for the time.